When Ramakrishna had attained to the highest ideal of each yoga and had realized his spiritual oneness with the absolute Brahman and the mother of the universe, rumors spread from mouth to mouth that Ramakrishna had reached perfection in this life. People from all quarters began to crowd around him. Pandits and scholars of every nationality, as well as hundreds of devout men and women of all sects, came to see him and listen to his original and wonderful teachings. This was the beginning of his public life as spiritual leader and guide, which continued for nearly 16 years. During this period, he did nothing but help mankind. By freely distributing the priceless jewels of spiritual truths which he had earned through such struggle, hardship, and austerities. Ramakrishna had a marvelous intellect and keen insight into the true nature of things and events, and using the commonest occurrences of everyday life as illustrations, he succeeded in making the dull minds of worldly people grasp the spiritual depth, beauty, and grandeur of his sublime ideals. He poured new life into every word that he uttered so as to touch the soul of his hearers. People listened with wonder and admiration to his original discourses on the most difficult problems concerning life and death, the nature and origin of the soul, the origin of the universe, and our relation to God. In this age of scientific rationalism, Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna has shown to the world how the Lord of the universe can be realized and attained in this life, and no one except him has ventured to go through all the tests of skeptics and agnostics to prove that he had attained to God consciousness. Those who have seen him, lived with him for years, and watched him by day and by night have proclaimed before the world that he was the embodiment of the highest spiritual ideals of all nations, and that whoever worships him with faith and reverence worships the latest manifestation of divinity. The Bhagavan proved by his example that wherever there is extreme longing to see God, there is the nearness of the realization of the absolute truth. His life has given to the world a grand demonstration that even in this age, divinity can be reached and divine perfection can be acquired by one who is pure, chaste, simple, and whose devotion is wholehearted and whole-souled. We have neither seen nor heard of a character purer, simpler, more chaste, more truthful, and more godly than that of this ideal Mahatman. He was like the personification of purity and chastity and the embodiment of truthfulness. His life was the life of absolute renunciation. Earthly pleasures and comforts meant nothing to him. The only pleasure, comfort, or happiness which he cared for was the blissful state of samadhi, or God consciousness, when his soul, liberated from the bondage of body and mind, soared high in the infinite space of the Absolute. This samadhi was a natural state with Ramakrishna. He never had to make a special effort to attain it. We often heard him say that when he was 4 years old, he went into samadhi at the sight of the beautiful coloring of a tropical cloud. This realization he always remembered and often described in his conversation, and as he grew older, his samadhi or ecstasy became stronger and deeper. In his samadhi, his body would become absolutely motionless, his pulse and heartbeat imperceptible, his eyes would be half open, and if anyone pressed his eyeball with the finger, his body would not move or show the least sign of sensation. He would remain in this state sometimes for a few minutes, sometimes for half an hour or an hour, and on one occasion he continued in it for 3 days and nights. Then he would come down on the plane of sense consciousness. Then he would come down on the plane of sense consciousness Then he would come down on the plane of sense consciousness and relate his experiences. He had the power to separate himself from the cage of the physical organism and to go into this state of divine communion at his will and stay there as long as he wished. Frequently he told us that he reached such a height in samadhi that if he had been like an ordinary mortal, he could never have returned to his body. That no mortal had ever come back from that kind of samadhi, and that the Divine Mother gave him this power to return to this plane simply to help mankind and to establish his mission. To him, God was father, mother, brother, sister, and everything. He recognized no earthly relations. He never coveted wealth, nor had he any earthly possession. He realized that gold had no more value than earth, and became absolutely unattached to riches, understanding the transitoriness of the objects which can be acquired by wealth. He often said that immortality could not be purchased by money, and emphasized by his example the true meaning of the Vedic passage. Neither by meritorious deed, nor by progeny, nor by wealth, but by renunciation alone, the immortal truth can be acquired. Renunciation of the attachment to worldly things is the gate to God consciousness. Christ, Buddha, Chaitanya, Shankaracharya, and all other saviors and spiritual leaders of the world exemplified this by living the life of absolute renunciation. It is very rare to find in this age a perfect ideal of the renunciation of lust and of worldly attachment. Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna practiced the ideal of the renunciation of riches to such an extent that he was able to make his body respond involuntarily to the touch of coin by shrinking from it even in sound sleep. We have often seen him suffer pain when he was obliged to touch a coin of any metal. Who could be a more perfect ideal of renunciation in this age of materialism? Sri Ramakrishna taught that every woman, old or young, was the representative of the Divine Mother. He worshipped God as the Mother of the universe and frequently declared that his Divine Mother had shown him that all women represent divine motherhood on earth. For the first time in the religious history of the world was this ideal preached by any divine incarnation. And upon this depends the salvation of men, and especially of women of all countries, from immorality, corruption, and such other vices as prevail in a civilized community.